I skipped my own family function to attend theirs, thinking they would be happy, but when I reached, they introduced me as just an acquaintance and walked away like my sacrifices never mattered. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I was a fool who thought I could have everything. It started with Sarah. My girlfriend of 4 years, soon to be fiancée if I hadn't it all. She was everything I thought I wanted. Stable job, beautiful, loved my family, talked about our future like it was written in stone. But somewhere along the way I convinced that stable meant boring. Then came the work conference in Chicago. Emma sat next to me during the opening session. Dark hair, this laugh that made everyone turn around, and she actually listened when I talked about my marketing ideas instead of just nodding politely like Sarah did. We grabbed coffee after the first day. Just coffee. Nothing wrong with coffee, right? Wrong. The next evening, she asked if I wanted to explore the city instead of going to the networking dinner. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. How's the conference? Miss already? I stared at that message for 30 seconds, then put my phone on silent. We walked through downtown Chicago talking about everything. Our dreams, our fears, what we really wanted out of. Emma understood my frustrations with work in ways Sarah never seemed to. She made me feel interesting again, like I had potential beyond my cubicle and mortgage payments. When she met me outside her hotel, I didn't pull away. I told it was just one moment of feeling alive again. But that night lying in my hotel bed, I couldn't stop replaying it. The way she tasted like impossibilities. The way she looked at me like I was someone worth knowing. The next day, we skipped the morning sessions, found ourselves in her hotel room talking about how we'd never felt this connection with anyone else. How maybe we were meant to meet. How sometimes the universe puts people in path for a reason. I knew it was wrong. I knew Sarah was probably picking out engagement ring styles on Pinterest like she'd been doing for months. I knew I was crossing a line that would change everything. But Emma made me feel like the person I used to be before responsibility and routine wore me down. Before I became the guy who came home, watched Netflix and went to bed at 10 p.m. every night. So I crossed it. Nothing physical happened that weekend beyond kissing, but emotionally, I cheated completely. I gave Emma parts of I'd stopped sharing with Sarah. I made promises about staying in touch. I felt more connected to a woman I'd known for 3 days than the woman I'd been with for 4 years. The flight home was. Sarah picked me at the airport with my favorite coffee and this huge smile. She asked about every session, wanted to hear all the details. I made stories about boring presentations while thinking about Emma's laugh. That night, Sarah curled against me in bed and whispered, I missed so much. I don't know what I'd do without. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, hating but already planning when I could see Emma again. The texting started immediately. Good morning messages, photos of our coffee, inside jokes from our weekend. Emma lived in Denver, only 2 hours by plane. She had work that brought her to my city sometimes. The distance made it feel less real, like we existed in some separate world where consequences didn't matter. For 6 weeks I lived 2 lives. At home I was Sarah's devoted boyfriend helping plan our future, looking at apartments we might rent together. But every spare moment belonged to Emma. Long phone calls during lunch breaks. Weekend trips I justified as work networking. Late night video chats when Sarah was asleep. Sarah noticed the changes. How I was suddenly working late more often. How I seemed distracted during our date nights. How I'd started caring about my appearance again, buying new clothes and working out. Seemed different lately, she said one Thursday night over dinner. Happier. More like old self. Did something good happen at work? The guilt nearly killed me, but I just smiled and said the conference had motivated me. Seeing her face light with pride in my success, made me feel like the worst person alive. Then came the invitation. Emma's sister was getting married in San Francisco. She wanted me to come as her date. It was the same weekend as Sarah's grandmother's 90th birthday party. The party her whole family had been planning for months. The party where she wanted to announce our engagement. I should have said no. Should have remembered that Sarah's family had become my family. That her grandmother always saved me an extra piece of pie at holidays. That her little nephew called me Uncle Mike, even though we weren't married yet. But Emma was crying on the phone. I know it's a lot to ask, but I can't face my family alone again. They keep asking why I'm still single, and I want to show them I'm happy. I want to show them. She'd never asked me for anything before, and the thought of meeting her family, of being part of her world instead of just stolen moments, made everything feel more real. More legitimate somehow. Please, she whispered. I need there. So I lied to Sarah, told her client emergency came, that I had to fly to Portland for a weekend to save a major account. Watched her face fall as she realized I'd miss her grandmother's party. But we were going to announce. She started. I know baby. I'm so sorry. We can do it at the next family gathering. This client is just too important. She nodded because she trusted me. Because in 4 years I'd never given her a reason not to trust me. Because she loved me enough to put my career first, even when it broke her heart. I booked my flight to San Francisco and spent the week before lying awake, knowing I was about to cross a line I could never uncross. Sarah drove me to the airport Friday morning, me goodbye and said I'm proud of her working so hard for us. Call me when can. As her car disappeared into traffic I felt my phone buzz. Emma, can't wait to see. My family is going to love. Standing in that airport terminal, boarding pass to San Francisco in my hand, I had one last chance to turn around. One last chance to catch a cab home, show at that birthday party, and propose to the woman who deserved so much better than me. Instead I got on the plane. The wedding was beautiful. Emma looked stunning in her bridesmaid dress. Her family welcomed me like I belonged there. Her dad shook my hand and said he hadn't seen Emma this happy in years. Her mom hugged me and said she could tell I made her daughter feel special. They had no idea I was living a lie. That night, in Emma's hotel room, we finally did what we'd been building toward for 2 months. I gave her everything I'd been saving for Sarah. Made promises I had no right to make. Told her I was falling in love with her. When my phone rang at 2 a.m., I almost didn't answer. Sarah's name on the screen made my stomach drop. Mike. Her voice was thick with tears. Grandma collapsed. She's in the hospital. Can catch the first flight home. I looked at Emma sleeping next to me, her hair spread across the pillow, and realized my two worlds about to collide in the worst possible way. I'll be right there. I whispered, already knowing it was too late for right there. Too late for everything. But I had no idea how much too late it really was. The flight home was the longest 4 hours of my, but it went straight to voicemail. Emma had woken when I was scrambling to pack, asking what was wrong if she could help somehow. I couldn't even look at her. Family emergency, I mumbled, throwing clothes into my bag. I have to go. She tried to hug me goodbye, but I was already out the door. In the taxi to the airport, I practiced what I'd tell Sarah. How I'd explain flying back from Portland instead of San Francisco. How I'd justify not answering my phone all weekend. But when I got to the hospital at 7 a.m. Sunday morning, none of my lies mattered. Sarah was in the waiting room with her entire family. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair a mess, still wearing the dress she'd planned to announce our engagement in. When she saw me, she didn't run into my arms like I expected. She just stared. "Mike," her dad said, standing. His voice was cold. "Didn't expect to see here." That's when I noticed her phone in her hands. The screen was cracked, like she'd thrown it. And on that cracked screen was a photo that made my freeze. It was me and Emma at the wedding reception, dancing, looking at each other like we were the only people in the world. Emma's friend had posted it Instagram, tagged Emma, and somehow it had made its way to Sarah's feed. "Portland, huh?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? The photo told the whole story. Emma in her bridesmaid dress, me in a suit Sarah had never seen, both of us glowing with the kind of happiness I hadn't felt with Sarah in months. "Grandma asked for," Sarah continued, her voice getting stronger. "She kept saying, 'Where's Mike? Why isn't he here?' And I kept making excuses. 'He's working so hard for our future, Grandma. He wanted to be here.' Even when she was struggling to breathe, I was protecting." Her mom put a hand on Sarah's shoulder, but Sarah shrugged it off. Do you know what she said to me right before they took her back for surgery? She said, "That boy loves so much, sweetheart. Don't let him get away." The words hit me like physical blows. Sarah's grandmother had always been my biggest supporter. She'd pull me aside at every family gathering to tell me how proud she was that Sarah found someone who made her so happy. She'd slip me 20s and whisper, "Take, made it through surgery." Sarah said, tears streaming down her face, "She's gonna be okay." But know what? She asked about again when she woke. "Where's Mike?" And I had to tell her we're busy, too busy for family. "Sarah, I can explain." "Explain what?" Her brother Jake stood and I remembered he'd never really liked me. "Explain how dancing with some other woman while my sister is planning engagement party. Explain how lied to all of us." "Who is she?" Sarah asked quietly. I could have lied again. Could have said she was a work colleague, just a friend, anything to minimize the damage. But looking at Sarah's face, seeing the complete devastation I'd caused, the lies died in my throat. "Her name is Emma. I met her at the conference. Or sleeping with her." The silence in that waiting room was deafening. Sarah's whole family was staring at me, waiting for an answer that would determine whether I was just a cheater or a complete monster. "Yes," Sarah's mom gasped. Her dad clenched his fists. Jake took a step toward me, but Sarah held her hand. "How long?" she whispered. 2 months. She repeated it like she was testing how the words felt. While I was showing mother engagement rings. While I was planning our future. While I was telling everyone how lucky I was to have found my person. I wanted to disappear. To go back in time and undo every choice that led to this moment. But I just stood there like a coward while the woman who'd loved me unconditionally fell apart. "I need to leave," she said finally. "Sarah, please let me leave." This time it was her dad speaking. "Done enough damage." I looked around the waiting room at people who'd welcomed me into their family for 4 years. Sarah's mom, who'd taught me her secret recipe for apple pie. Her dad, who'd taken me fishing every summer and talked about giving me his blessing. Her little nephew, who was hiding behind his mom's legs but peeking out at me with confused eyes. They all looked at me like I was a stranger. Worse than a stranger. Like I was someone dangerous who'd infiltrated their family under false pretenses. As I walked toward the exit, I heard Sarah's nephew ask, "Mommy, why is Uncle Mike leaving? Is Grandma gonna be okay?" I didn't hear the answer because I was already running. The next few days were a blur of consequences I hadn't considered. Sarah changed all her social media to single. She blocked my number, my email, everything. Her friends started unfollowing me on Instagram, and I watched our shared social circle choose sides. Emma kept calling, confused about why I'd left so abruptly, why I wasn't answering her texts. She'd started posting photos from the wedding weekend, including several of us together. To her, it was the beginning of something beautiful. She had no idea she was documenting the end of my as I knew it. Work became a nightmare. Sarah worked at the same company just 2 floors down in accounting. We'd always eaten lunch together, carpooled sometimes, made plans for after work. Now I ate alone and took the stairs to avoid running into her. But the worst part was seeing how it affected everyone else. Sarah's best friend Megan cornered me in the parking garage on Wednesday. "No, she's not eating right," she said. "She's lost 8 pounds in 4 days. She called in sick today because she couldn't stop crying long enough to do her makeup." I never meant. Don't. Just don't. Do you know she bought Christmas present already? It's sitting in her closet. A watch with an engraving that says "Forever Yours." She was so excited to give it to. Each revelation was like a twist. The engagement ring her dad had secretly helped her pick out. The apartment application she'd filled out for us. The dog she'd been researching because she knew I wanted one. Emma finally showed at my apartment Friday night, having driven 4 hours because I wouldn't return her calls. "What happened?" she demanded. "Disappeared after the most perfect weekend, and now won't talk to me. Did I do something wrong?" Looking at her, I realized I'd created a fantasy version of our relationship. In my mind was this exciting, understanding woman who completed me. But standing in my living room, she was just someone I barely knew who'd helped me destroy my. "I have a girlfriend," I said finally. "Had I had a girlfriend of 4 years?" Emma's face went white. "What do you mean had?" "She found out about us, about the wedding, everything. Told me we're single," said. I lied. The word hung between us like a weapon. Emma sank onto my couch, staring at me like she'd never seen me before. "So what was this weekend?" "I don't know." "Don't know." Her voice was rising. "I introduced to my family. My sister thinks we're in love. My parents are already planning to invite to Christmas." And don't know answer because the truth was too. She'd been my escape from reality. My way of feeling young and exciting again. But I'd never planned for what would happen when fantasy met real. "Get out," she whispered. Emma. Jito, she screamed. I don't ever want to see again. Don't call me, don't text me, don't exist in my world. You're a liar and a user and I that I ever met. Point. She slammed the door so hard my neighbor's dog started barking. That weekend Sarah's grandmother came home from the hospital. I heard about it through mutual friends who were still speaking to me, which was basically nobody. There was a welcome home party, the same party where Sarah was supposed to announce our engagement. Instead, she announced she was moving back in with her parents for a while, taking time to figure out her, maybe transferring to the company's Seattle office to start fresh. I drove by her parents' house that Sunday, not planning to stop, just needing to see the place that had been my second home for 4 years. All the cars were there for the party. Sarah's car, her siblings' cars, her grandparents' old sedan. Through the window I could see them all in the living room. Sarah was curled on the couch next to her grandmother, both of them smiling at something her nephew was showing them. It looked like peace, like healing, like a family that was stronger without the person who'd been lying to them for months. I sat in my car watching them for 20 minutes, and not once did anyone look toward the window. Not once did anyone wonder where I was or I was there. I'd made completely irrelevant to the people who'd mattered most. That night I tried to write Sarah a letter. An email. Anything to explain, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. But every word sounded hollow. How to apologize for choosing someone else over the person who loved most? How to explain that away 4 years for 2 months of feeling special? My phone rang at midnight. For a second my heart jumped, thinking it might be Sarah. It was Emma. I've been thinking, she said, her voice shaky. Maybe we can work through this. Maybe leaving her means we can actually be together now. Really together. The delusion in her voice made me sick. She still didn't understand that I'd never chosen her. I'd just chosen not to choose Sarah, which wasn't the same thing at all. Emma, there is no us. There never was. I used to avoid dealing with my own problems, and I let believe we had something real. But we don't know each other. We just know the versions of ourselves we created for each other. But the what-in was the worst mistake I ever made. The silence stretched between us until she finally hung. I was completely alone now. No Sarah, no Emma, no family that wasn't really my family anymore. Just me and the consequences of thinking I could have everything without losing anything. But the real punishment was just beginning. 6 months later, I'm writing this from a studio apartment across town. The lease on the place Sarah and I shared expired, and her name was on everything that mattered anyway. She moved to Seattle like she'd planned, got the promotion she deserved, and from what I hear through the few mutual acquaintances who still acknowledge my existence, she's doing well. I am not doing well. The worst part isn't the loneliness, though that's crushing. It's not even the guilt, though that follows me everywhere like a shadow. The worst part is how small my world became when I lost everyone who actually knew me. At work, I eat lunch alone now. The marketing team still includes me in meetings because they have to, but the casual conversations stop when I walk into the break room. Sarah's friend Megan works in HR, and while she's professional I can see the disgust in her eyes every time she has to interact with me. I got passed over for the promotion I'd been working toward for 2 years. My manager Tom didn't say it was because of what happened with Sarah, but he didn't have to. We're looking for someone who demonstrates better judgment, was how he put it. Emma blocked me on everything after that last phone call. I heard through the grapevine that she told people I was emotionally manipulative and pathological liar. She wasn't wrong, but hearing it from other people made it real in a way that worse than I expected. The holidays were the hardest part. For 4 years I'd spent Thanksgiving and Christmas with Sarah's family. Her mom always made sure there were extra presents for me under the tree. Her dad and I had our tradition of watching football games and complaining about the refs. Her nephew always insisted I read him the Christmas story before bed. This year I spent Thanksgiving alone with takeout Chinese food and old movies. Christmas morning I woke in my empty apartment to complete silence. No excited voices in the kitchen, no smell of cinnamon rolls, no little feet running down the hallway. I drove by their house that morning, hating for doing it but unable to stop. All the cars were there except Sarah's. She was in Seattle, probably celebrating with new friends, building a that didn't have space for the memory of what I'd done to her. Through the window I could see her grandmother opening presents, the same grandmother who'd almost died while I was dancing with another woman. She looked healthy and happy, surrounded by family who actually showed when they were needed. I sat in my car for an hour, watching a that used to include me, a family that used to consider me one of their own. Her nephew ran past the window at one point, wearing a superhero costume, and I remembered how he used to beg me to play superheroes with him in the backyard. That kid probably doesn't even remember my name now. The hardest day was when I ran into Sarah's brother Jake at the grocery store in March. I'd been careful to shop at different places, to avoid anywhere I might see someone from my old, but I'd run out of coffee and made a quick trip to the store near my old apartment. He saw me before I saw him. When I turned the corner into the coffee aisle, he was standing there with his wife and their son, Sarah's nephew who used to call me Uncle Mike. The little boy looked at me with curiosity but no recognition. 9 months was a lifetime for a 4-year-old. "Daddy, who's that man?" he asked, loud enough for other shoppers to hear. Jake's wife quickly steered the cart away but Jake stayed put, staring at me with the same cold anger he'd had that day in the hospital waiting room. "Nobody important," he said loud enough for me to hear. "Just somebody who used to be around." Used to be around. That's what I'd become. A ghost of a person who used to exist in their lives. I abandoned my cart and left the store without buying anything. The dating apps were a joke. How to explain to someone new that destroyed a 4-year relationship by cheating? That lied to everyone who trusted. That of the kind of person who chooses excitement over loyalty. I went on a few dates but they all ended the same way. Either I'd be honest about why my last relationship ended, and they'd suddenly remember they had to be somewhere else, or I'd lie and spend the entire evening terrified they'd somehow find out the truth. One woman, Jessica, actually seemed interested despite my history. "Everyone makes mistakes," she said over dinner. "What matters is what learned from it." But when I tried to explain what I'd learned, I realized I didn't know. What was the lesson? Don't cheat, don't lie, don't take good people for granted. All of those were obvious before I'd destroyed my. The real lesson was darker and harder to admit. I'd learned that I was the kind of person who could do all those things. That beneath the nice guy exterior I'd cultivated was someone selfish enough to risk everything for a fantasy. That I was capable of looking someone I loved in the eye and lying without flinching. Jessica stopped returning my calls after that conversation. Work performance reviews came in May. Needs improvement in reliability and team collaboration. Tom wrote, shows potential but lacks the leadership qualities we're looking for in senior positions. I'd been at the company for 6 years. Before Sarah, I'd been on track for management. Now I was barely holding on to my current role. Watching younger employees get promoted around me while I became the cautionary tale people whispered about at office happy hours. The worst part was that I deserved it all. Every lonely night, every passed over opportunity, every awkward encounter with people from my past. I'd earned this isolation by choosing it over everything real in my. In June I heard Sarah was engaged. Her friend posted a photo on Instagram, a simple of Sarah's hand wearing a beautiful vintage ring, the kind she'd always said she wanted. The caption read, she said yes to the most amazing man who makes her laugh every day and loves her exactly as she is. I stared at that photo for hours. The ring was different from the one she'd picked out for us, smaller but somehow more elegant. Her nails were painted a soft pink instead of the red she used to wear for me. Everything about it spoke of a different Sarah, one who'd grown and healed and found someone worthy of her trust. The comments were full of congratulations from friends I recognized, friends who used to include me in group chats and birthday parties. He's perfect for, finally, a man who deserves. About time found person. Each comment was a reminder that I'd never been her person. I'd just been someone taking space until her actual person came along. That night, I did something pathetic. I created an Instagram account and tried to find more photos of Sarah and her fiancé. It took me an hour of scrolling through her friends' accounts, but I finally found them. He was everything I wasn't. Tall where I was average, confident where I was insecure, present where I'd been absent. In every photo, he was looking at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. His arm was around her protectively, not possessively. He looked like a man who'd never make her question whether she was enough. They looked genuinely happy, not the forced happiness of people trying to convince themselves they're in love, but the easy joy of two people who fit together naturally. I closed the laptop and didn't open it again for 3 days. Work became my only routine, the only thing keeping me tethered to any kind of normal. But even there, I'd become invisible. I completed my assignments, attended meetings, contributed ideas that were politely acknowledged and quickly forgotten. During lunch breaks I'd sit in my car and call my mom, the only person who still took my calls without resentment. She'd ask about my job, my apartment, whether I was eating enough. She never asked about dating or relationships. We both knew that part of my was over. Sound tired, honey? She said during one of these calls in July. I am tired, Mom. Maybe should think about moving. Starting fresh somewhere new. Starting fresh. Like I could pack my mistakes and leave them behind in this city. Like Sarah's family wouldn't still be here, living their lives without me. Like I could run away from the person I'd proven to be. Maybe, I said, knowing I never would. Where would I go? What would I do? I'd have to explain why I left my job, my apartment, I'd have to tell new people why I was alone, why I had no friends, why nobody from my past wanted to stay in touch. The truth was I didn't deserve a fresh start. I deserved to sit in the wreckage I'd created and remember what it cost to throw away love for the illusion of something better. Last week, I saw Sarah's engagement announcement in the local paper. Sarah Elizabeth Morrison and David Christopher Kim are pleased to announce their engagement. Sarah is an account manager at Morrison & Associates. David is a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital. The wedding will take place in September in Seattle, with close family and friends in attendance. Close family and friends. People who show when need them. People who don't lie about business trips when planning to announce engagement. People who choose every day instead of choosing adventure. I got the announcement and put it in my wallet, though I'm not sure why. Maybe as a reminder, maybe as punishment. Tonight, as I write this, I can hear my neighbors laughing through the thin walls. A couple arguing about what to watch on Netflix, the kind of argument that ends with one of them giving in and the other promising to pick next time. Normal relationship sounds. The sounds of people who trust each other. I used to have that. I used to be someone who came home to questions about my day, to someone who cared whether I ate lunch, to someone who made plans that included me in the future. Now I come home to silence. My phone never rings unless it's work or my mom. My refrigerator has nothing but expired takeout containers and my bed is too big for one person. But there's no one to share it with, and honestly there shouldn't be. I don't deserve companionship. I don't deserve trust. I don't deserve the kind of love Sarah gave me, the kind I away for 2 months of feeling special with someone who barely knew me. Emma was right to me. Sarah's family was right to me out completely. Every person who looked at me with disgust or disappointment or just casual indifference was right to do so. I am exactly what I chose to become, a person who had everything and chose nothing instead. And the thing that haunts me most isn't that I lost Sarah. It's that somewhere out there she's building a beautiful with someone who deserves her, and I'm genuinely happy for her. She's getting the love story she always wanted, the partner who shows, the future she dreamed about. I'm getting exactly what I earned.